you come to listen to these, I am really sorry. Um, they are they are absolutely way cuter than I am, and I completely get that. Hopefully, the next week they'll be here. We're going to cover chapter 20. We're going to do the whole thing just in one passage here, and then we're going to focus today on one particular character and really we're going to spend actually all of our time on one character and talking about his qualities, and that's actually Jonathan. I think he is one of the least discussed characters in First Samuel. Um, we talk about Samuel, we talk about Saul, we talk about David, and a lot of the fight is between David and Saul. But I think in all of that, we really forget about Jonathan, who is in just a precarious position in this chapter and really throughout this book. And so, like I said, we'll start at the beginning of chapter 20, verse 1. We'll go through the entire chapter. Then David fled from Naioth at Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, "What have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he is trying to kill me?" "Never," Jonathan replied. "You are not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything great or small without letting me know. Why would he hide this from me? It isn't so." But David took an oath and said, "Your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes." And he said to himself, "Jonathan must not know this, or he will be grieved. Yet as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, there is only a step between me and death." Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it for you." So David said, "Look, tomorrow is the new moon feast, and I am supposed to dine with the king. But let me go and hide in the field until evening of the day after tomorrow. If your father misses me at all, tell him David earnestly asked my permission to hurry to Bethlehem, his hometown, because an annual sacrifice is being made there for his whole clan. If he says, 'Very well,' then your servant is safe. But if he loses his temper, you can be sure that he is determined to harm me. As for you, show kindness to your servant, for you have brought him into a covenant with you before the Lord. If I am guilty, then kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father?" "Never," Jonathan said. "If I had the least inkling that my father was determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you?" David asked, "Who will tell me if your father answers you harshly?" "Come," Jonathan said, "let's go out into the field." So they went there together. There Jonathan said to David, "I swear by the Lord, the God of Israel, that I will surely sound out my father by this time the day after tomorrow. If he is favorably disposed toward you, will I not send a word and let you know? But if my father intends to harm you, may the Lord deal with Jonathan, be it ever so severely, if I do not let you know and send you away in peace. May the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. But show me unfailing kindness like the Lord's kindness as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. And do not ever cut off your kindness from my family, not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth." So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, "May the Lord call David's enemies to account." And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. Then Jonathan said to David, "Tomorrow is the new moon feast. You will be missed, because your seat will be empty. The day after tomorrow, toward the evening, go to the place where you hid when this trouble began, and wait by the stone Ezel. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I were shooting at a target. Then I will send a boy and say, 'Go find the arrows.' If I say to him, 'Look, the arrows are on this side of you, bring them here.' Then come, because surely as the Lord lives, you are safe, there is no danger. But if I say to the boy, 'Look, the arrows are beyond you,' then you must go, because the Lord has sent you away. And about the matter you and I discussed, remember the Lord is witness between you and me forever." So David hid in the field, and when the new moon feast came, the king sat down to eat. He sat in his customary place by the wall, opposite Jonathan, and Abner sat next to Saul, but David's place was empty. Saul said nothing that day, for he thought something must have happened to David to make him ceremonially unclean. Surely he is unclean. But the next day, the second day of the month, David's place was empty again. Then Saul said to his son Jonathan, "Why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the meal, either today or yesterday?" Jonathan answered, "David earnestly asked me for permission to go to Bethlehem. He said, 'Let me go, because our family is observing a sacrifice in the town, and my brother has ordered me to be there. If I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away to see my brothers.' That is why he has not come to the king's table." Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him, "You son of a perverse and rebellious woman, don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse, to your own shame and to the shame of the mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now send someone to bring him to me, for he must die." "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" Jonathan asked his father. But Saul hurled his spear at him to kill him. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger. On the second day of the feast he did not eat, because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David. In the morning Jonathan went out to the field for his meeting with David. He had a small boy with him, and said to the boy, "Run and find the arrows I shoot." As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. When the boy came to the place where Jonathan's arrows had fallen, Jonathan called out after him, "Isn't the arrow beyond you?" Then he shouted, "Hurry, go quickly, don't stop." The boy picked up the arrow and returned to his master. The boy knew nothing about this, only Jonathan and David knew. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to the boy and said, "Go carry them back to town." After the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times, with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever.'" Then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town. This is a pretty sad chapter to me, because what we're seeing here is really the parting of two friends in a way that they don't want to. And so, like I said, we're going to really talk about Jonathan. I don't think we're giving him enough discussion a lot of times in this book. And so let's kind of back up and talk about who he is and some of his characteristics here. He's obviously the son of Saul. He's also, as a result, the most likely name to assume the throne after the death of his father. As we mentioned before, it's not a guarantee. Kingdoms didn't work the way they do now, where primogeniture is the primary way the kingdom is determined. That you were highly favored and highly likely to become king after your father, when your father died, but it wasn't guaranteed. A brother was just as likely to take the place, or a lot of times, especially early on in the kingdom, the king became more of a meritocracy where the leading people picked the next king. And so we don't. He's not guaranteed, but again, he's very likely. He's very likely, especially if Saul has a long reign. He's a warrior. As we remembered a couple chapters ago, he was part of the sneak attack that really threw the Philistines into a state of panic and allowed the Israelites to win a battle over a highly outnumbered enemy, or over an enemy that outnumbered them massively. And also in a battle that most of them didn't have swords. Most of them were fighting with plows and mattocks and whatever they could find in their shed. He actually led that battle, and so we know we know he's a good warrior for his father. We know he's close within the governance of Israel, as we see in this chapter. We see that David talks about how Jonathan's part of most of the decision making, most of the policies that Saul's making. Jonathan's aware of it, and so he's actually saying, Jonathan's saying, "I know everything. My dad tells me all the major things he's doing. How could he not?" And David comes back and says, "Well, because he knows that we're such close friends, you would be grieved." We also know he's a very close friend from the moment where David killed Goliath. They become friends. At various times, they swear oaths to each other on their friendship. Um, and I believe that actually the friendship is closer than what we're even told here. We're told many times they're close friends. They're close friends. But I want to remind everyone that the time that's going on in this book is multiple years. So while we're sort of very quickly going, David and Goliath, moving into the next one, Saul finds Chelsea. In the middle of all this is years and years and years of rule and years and years of war. And remember, David is a war leader for Saul. Jonathan is likely a war leader for Saul. These two guys probably campaigned for years with each other, fighting the enemies of Israel in this time. And so they were likely, they strategically probably worked together all the time, and they probably, developed a very close friendship, a brothers in arms types friendship, due to how much they were probably likely battling on the field of battle together. And that's going to be a very strong bond at this point in time. It also seems that Jonathan is either on the positive way of spinning it, overly optimistic, or in more of the negative context, naive about his father's relationship with David. We know in the previous chapter that he helped Saul and David reconcile, and Saul said he wouldn't kill David, and so we saw that, and then we see immediately later on Saul tries to betray David. But he seems a little naive about this fact. David's saying, "Dude, your dad's trying to kill me," and Jonathan's going, "No, if he was trying to do that, he would tell me." And David's going, "We're friends. Of course he's not going to tell you. You know, you're either going to be really sad or you're going to tell me. So your dad's not telling you these things." That's sort of I guess the vernacular of what's probably going on here. But Jonathan shows a bit of ignorance about who his father is. And again, most of us think, like I said, we all think highly of our dads. And maybe this is a little bit of Jonathan hoping for the best out of his dad and out of David and hoping that this is not coming. Maybe he's just, hope springs to term, maybe he's just hoping that this isn't as bad as what it appears, and which it really is. Um, Ironically, given all this, given the ironic and tragic piece about this, and again, I think I've used the word tragedy a couple times because it feels like there's a bit of a tragedy here. One of the saddest things about this is, um, of all the characters in First Samuel that we're approaching, um, it's Jonathan, not Saul, but it's Jonathan who actually has the most to lose at the hands of David. If we look at the chapters, David has never shown intent to kill Saul. He's never showed intent to usurp Saul at any time and take the throne himself. He shows himself up multiple times fiercely loyal to Saul, and at various times seems to imply that it would be a cardinal sin to kill the anointed king of Israel that God placed on the throne, which was Saul. David has no intent of taking the throne. Now, if that's the case, Saul is safe in his position. And what we see instead is that Saul is terrified of this position, but Saul is actually safe. The person at this point in time who has the most to lose because of David is actually Jonathan. That's the irony of it. And the biggest defender at the same time of David is Jonathan. And so we have this really strange kind of pull back and forth. And so we see this episode where they're trying to determine what is Saul going to do and what should they do with David. And so we hear the story of the feast and we hear the story of Saul getting angry and mad. And we actually see at one point where Saul tells Jonathan, "As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor the kingdom will be established, nor your kingdom will be established." Now I want to remind you of something. Jonathan is the son of the king. One more thing that Jonathan likely knew was he also likely knew Samuel's prophecy that the kingdom would not be established through Saul's line. And yet still we see Jonathan with a devotedness to David that really surpasses all of this. Still, roots in that friendship and that oath that he kept to David. He knew David was a great general. He knew the feats. He probably heard the Saul kills his thousands and David kills his tens of thousands. He likely heard that saying just as much as Saul did. So he knew who David was. He knew of his ability. He knew that he was probably a prime contender for the throne if something should have happened to Saul. Saul even tells him he's going to take your kingdom. And given all of this, what we see here, Jonathan had a choice. He could betray his friend and have David killed, and probably for at least a little while establish a kingdom under his name. Or he could help his friend escape, allow the prophecy really to fully flesh through exactly as it is, and he is guaranteeing that he will not be king. He might even die in the process, even though David would do his best not to have him killed. This is a no-win scenario for Jonathan. And what we see here is he chose the oath that he made to David, the kindness and the love and the friendship that he had with David surpassed all of the material gain that could be established by trying to set up his own kingdom. He gave up that potential. And he likely knew he was giving up the kingdom when he did this. But his friendship was first. And so, when given these types of choices, would we have chosen the same thing? He could have easily betrayed a family or a friend, or just an acquaintance of some sort. Jonathan could have justified it. He could have rationalized it by saying, "Well, this is what's better for my family, for my kids." This is something we all use to justify a lot of stuff today. Sometimes it might be right. A lot of times it's probably wrong. but we all sort of justify my family comes first, no matter what, and and we will break oaths for that because of that bond. And again, we should protect our family and we should care for our family, but sometimes we over rationalize this. Jonathan could have rationalized that he would be a better king. And to be clear, Jonathan, based off the qualities of character that we see here, Jonathan might have been an excellent king. And so he might have said, you know what, I would be a better king. I can do this. And that's another place that a lot of times we justify. We justify giving people chances to grow, especially in careers a lot of times. In our jobs, a lot of times we don't give people under us a chance to grow and to learn new things because we think we're better at it and we want to be better at it. Really, and a lot of times it's just a vanity that we want to keep stuff close to justify our position. He could have justified saying, "This isn't fair. I'm a good person. Why am I getting kicked in the teeth because my dad is not really a great king? I would be good. This isn't fair. And as it's not fair, I'm not going to allow David to live either." Again, the it's not fair, the world's not fair, the world's wrong to me. We justify a lot of things under that name. And regardless of why we rationalize, and there's multiple rationalizations we could do, but those are three that really come to mind real quickly. Despite all of those rationalizations, they're wrong and they're incorrect. And when we do that, somewhere down the line, even if we can't see who the person is, somewhere down the line, we're harming somebody, we're hurting someone. A lot of times we don't see it, but we are. Anytime we take something that isn't ours and we take it for our own, we're withholding something from somebody else. We're withholding some type of blessing, some type of need from somebody else. And that's wrong. We should not be withholding anything from anybody. We see here Jonathan is different. He values this friendship. He values the oath that he made. And as such, he has such a clear sense of morality for about right and wrong, what justice should be in this case, that he warns David secretly and says, "Get away. My father will kill you if you stay here." And then we see Jonathan weep. We see David weep. And they're not weeping because of Jonathan's not weeping because he's losing his kingdom or losing the potential for the kingdom. He's weeping because his friend now has to go into untold trials and hardships. He has to flee from Jonathan's own father to prevent dying. He was fearful for his friend. He was probably bitter that he wouldn't see his friend for a long time, if ever again. Because what we see here is going to be the start of a sort of quasi-civil war where Saul just continually is chasing David to capture him. And so in some ways, they're likely saying farewells at the same time. There's a lot of sadness in this. And so as we look at this, who should we be? Should we be the Saul of this world, trying to hold everything for ourselves and for our family and protecting everything in this little bubble that's ours? Or should we remember our friendships and relationships and make sure that we're doing the best for everyone in this world that we can? And make sure we're not justifying incorrectly to take things for ourselves, to keep things close to us. At times Jonathan and Millie seems to be a bit naive, kind of hoping for the best out of his dad. But I tell you, if I'm going to have a flaw, I'd rather have his naivety than Saul's cynicism about the situation. His father was trying to hoard everything at this point in time, and was willing to kill even his closest confidants to protect him. He's willing to kill one of his best generals to make sure that he can keep his kingdom. So when given the choice, if you're going to be a Saul or a Jonathan, be a Jonathan. Remember your relationships, remember your friendships, remember that we should be caring and loving to each other and not trying to hoard everything that we have. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the blessings that you've given us. Thank you for letting us be able to be on here virtually so that we can learn a little bit more about you. Let us really remember who Jonathan was and think about what he was giving up and what he knew at the time he was giving up. And let us live like him. He was selfless. Help us to think of that selflessness. He showed a selflessness that outside of of Jesus, I can't think of a person that was matched in the Bible with how selfless he was with his own position. Let us be as much like him and be like Jesus, who showed the same qualities as what we can. Let us do for others, help for others, remember our promises, remember our oaths, whatever they are, and keep to them, and not let something break those. Please help us as we go throughout this week. Help us all to start to enjoy the spring as it comes up. Help us to stay safe. Help us to hopefully see normal soon in some way, shape, or form. We ask for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. But thank you guys. By way of announcements, again, church is always at 10:45. If you feel comfortable in person, we are still doing various safety measures. You're always more than welcome to attend. And if not, we are always doing it virtually. You can find us on the Winfield Nazarene Facebook page live at 10:45. And again, we will be back here at 6 p.m. next week. So I hope you have a great evening. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.